Welcome to another edition of Grammar to the Rescue.
Das Schiffshebewerk hat sowohl oben als auch unten jeweils eine Schleuse.
Suppose in this case that you did not clearly hear alles auch, but you did clearly hear sowohl.
Das Schiffshebewerk hat sowohl oben als auch unten jeweils eine Schleuse.
Having heard sowohl and being acclimatized to typical patterns in the German language, such as this function sowohl x also y, both x and y, you might guess that this also or whatever sounds were made quickly, said quickly by a native speaker, that you could guess, hey, given sowohl, the conditional probability of alles auch is pretty high. In addition, given sowohl oben, the conditional probability of alles auch unten is even higher. So if you're dropping sounds, then you can kind of guess what the official transcript, denominated theirs in this case, will probably be. Throughout this video, I've been ignoring that I simply missed the word jeweils. I wasn't quite listening on that port, not able to map those sounds to these written syllables, probably because I don't have, at the time at least, I didn't have enough experience with that word. So I simply wasn't thinking about it. Anything else to say about sowohl oben als auch unten, or sowohl x als auch y, sowohl a als auch b? Both a and b, it's a linguistic function, to use a term from some of my philosophical writings, in plain English, or plain whatever, plain thinking language. It's a typical pattern. Given 25% of it, or given half of it, you can kind of guess the other half. And if your mind is already listening for the front half or the back half, then you're ready to interpolate, that is, fill in the missing sounds in case you didn't hear clearly. Now, do you have to know sowohl oben als auch unten, or sowohl a als auch b, in order to learn the German language? That is, do you need to have received it from a textbook? Probably not. It's not unhelpful, but I think it's better to learn it from experience, to stumble and fail in various exercises of dictation or transcription, especially small dictation exercises, for which you're receiving immediate feedback rather than waiting 24 or 48 hours for an instructor to grade a longer sample or to reveal to you the official transcript for you to grade yourself. And again, in the course of playing these 4,000 or so sentences that I have floating around in my head, I've been exposed to sowohl x als auch y, or sowohl ... als auch ... It's a function that takes two arguments. If we were to speak about this in a computer science manner, you can observe that, hey, this is kind of frequent. I've encountered this special construction of multiple words before. The oben and the unten, those might be replaced by different antithetical pairs. That's going to conclude the episode, but I just want to say that this kind of grammatical thinking, I think, only becomes relevant when you are at the point where you're close, you're almost able to perfectly transcribe a lot of sentences. Whereas previously at the beginning, you're going to have a lot of red and yellow in the diff. It doesn't make sense to preoccupy yourself or start thinking again of grammatical rules or starting to apply these principles. As in another example of Grammar to the Rescue, I said, well, hey, the conjugated verb has to agree in number and person with the subject. So if Musik is a subject, that's singular. In this case, it doesn't matter if it's feminine or masculine, but kann, it can't be Musik können. Another case where the grammatical principle helps us audit our attempt to capture what's heard. So again, we have a linguistic function here, sowohl X also Y, some a priori, that is prior to this exercise, knowledge of that function, which takes two arguments and is typically used in these German sentences, is pretty helpful when you're at the point where you capture, say, 90% of the sounds and are close to perfection. Not perfection, absolutely, but in the case of transcription, so that your probability of correct transcription of not yet heard samples is going to be pretty high. That high probability is going to correlate with a kind of fluency that's denoted C1 or C2 in the European language framework. And that's the goal. Even if we fail at A1, A2, B1, B2, when we could have focused on the elements of those exams for A1 through B2, we don't bother. We have a highly phonetic approach, massive amount of short dictation exercises, and according to my hypothesis, once you do focus on refinement, vocabulary, grammar, you will emerge at the C1 level, with the caveat that it helps to practice some conversation on the side as you do this. Wiedersehen.